Welcome to all to our next session of paper presentation. 25 papers are submitted by the participants on the theme Gender Issues in Literature, and now 15 papers will be presented by them.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Yashurai Tayal, Associate Professor and Head, Department of English. I am from DN College Hisar. It is in Haryana. I am highly thankful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity of presenting paper in this international webinar. The topic of my paper is Transformative Vision of Gender Issues in Literature. So let me start with the lines from famous poem of Tennyson, The Princess. Men for the field and women for the hearth, men for the sword and for the needle she, men to command and women to obey. This is the reality of uh, life of Indian women. The post-independence era is marked by India's search for her own identity. This search for identity is one of the remarkable features of literature penned by modern Indian women writers. Our constitution has imparted many rights to women, such as right to equality of opportunity, rights equal to men regarding marriage and divorce, and liberty of education and even liberty of expression. The makers of constitution raised women's problems and sought equal footing for them with men on all fronts. But the question is, what about the condition of women? The condition of women has not improved. But in spite of all types of progress, women are even today humiliated and harassed in homes as well as at workplaces. It is irony that in India, where goddesses are worshipped by millions of men, over 40% of women are harassed by their husbands. The girl child is still considered as a burden on the family. In this reference, Clara Newbill, in The Danger of Gender, writes about what does it mean to be a woman in modern India. And I quote, being a woman in modern India means to be entrapped into the inescapable case of being a woman, wife, mother. A woman cannot exist outside the boundaries of married life and motherhood. Otherwise, she is perceived as useless and unworthy. According to traditional Indian views, Indian women do not appear to have their independent role in society. Moreover, they must become a male appendix in order to have a role. Indian women are thus linked by male definitions. Individualism is considered a Western perversion, and female individual space is unacceptable and inconceivable. The women in India is confined to the triple role, that is, daughter in law, wife, and mother. If we observe the condition of women in India, we find they are worshipped on one hand and treated badly and enslaved on the other hand. However, Indian women are happy to live in the four walls of their homes, looking after their kith and kin. But actually, the position in rural areas is worse than the urban. They suffer a lot at the hands of men, but still they are struggling for their rights. Ours is male dominated society, and women are sexually colonized and biologically subjugated by men. As Saraha Grimble observes, and let me quote here, man has subjugated woman to his will, used as a means to promote his selfish gratification, to minister to his sensual pleasure, to be instrumental in promoting his comfort. He has done all he could do to debase and enslave her mind. The growth of a girl in Indian society is seen mainly in relation to her attitude towards her family and her duty towards it. It is true that today we are celebrating Daughter's Day, Mother's Day, Women's Day, but do we actually need these? The article published in the Times of India, New Delhi, is a stare on the celebration of Women's Day on March 8 in the world. It is like adding salt to the wound rather than paving the way for gender equality. Meeta Ghosh writes, a day long celebration of a woman's supposedly special status in society hardly justifies the other 64 days of wrongdoing towards women. It is true we cannot compensate 364 days, abuses, physical and mental tortures by one day honor and respect. Women of every race are the only discriminated group with no territory, no country of their own, not even a neighborhood. In a patriarchy, a poor man's house may be his castle, but even a rich woman's body is not her own. Somewhere in our lives, each of us needs a free place, a little psychic territory. But with the dawn of new millennium, the modern Indian woman has protested against this patriarchal masculine domination. She is standing strongly to prove that she is free, liberated, and assertive. The Indian English women writers are mapping new heights today. They have a passion for individuality and are breaking new grounds for them. For example, writers like Anita Desai, Shashi Deshpande, Manju Kapoor, Shobha Day, Kamla Das, Mamta Kalia, Imtiaz Dharkar, and Smita Agarwal are the poets and writers advocating individuality and self identity. In their writings, they delineate the pains and sufferings of women in united families. They plead that their exploitation and hypocrisy, traditional expectations of the family, obligations to society, and snatching away of the individual freedom will only result in identity crisis. Let me quote some lines from Kamla Das. She has written, if I had not learned to write, how would I have written away my loneliness or grief? Garnering them within, my heart would have grown heavy as a wall, one that only death might open or release that I would not be able to feel or sense. Writing to her is the best way of attacking society, which expected total surrender and total silence on the part of women. Similarly, other lines from Kamla Das itself, from the poem and introduction. Dress in saris, be girl, be wife, they said, be embroider, be cook, be a quarreler with servants, fit in, oh, belong, cried the categorizers. So this is a real picture of women she has drawn. Similarly, she has expressed her ideas in invitation also, in the looking glass also. Uh, Let me quote Victor S. D'Souza rightly observes. One may therefore say that unity and integrity of the joint family are maintained through the subordination of women by man. In fact, according to the traditional Hindu code, a woman is always deemed to be subordinate to man, first to her father, then to her husband, and finally to her son. Mamta Kalia, she has written in tribute to Papa, who cares for you, Papa? Who cares for your clean thought, clean words, clean breath? I am seriously thinking of disowning you, Papa. Similarly, again, who cares for you, Papa? Who wants to be an angel like you? Who wants it? You are an unsuccessful man, Papa. Now, we have seen the picture in which women loneliness and helplessness is depicted. But at the same time, if we look at the poetry and paintings of Imitiaz Dharkar, we will see some difference. She is optimistic. She maintains her positive attitude. Her poetry as well as her drawings both show her optimism. For example, if I quote lines from the poem Tow Path, when the Harker states, still between the cobbled banks, cradled by bare branches, we know we will be safe, we know we will be safe. Not even in the unknown path will tow us home. This is Imtiaz Dhankar is the foremost and most rebellious poet of post-independence generation. And apart from these women poets, there are several other women poets in India and abroad whose works compel emotion. We can see their passion for individuality as a movement towards self identity and freedom, which, though highly desirable and worthy, aim in themselves, are equally traumatic in their efforts on women. So, thank you. Thank you very much, and warm regards to all of you.
And esteemed chairperson, it is indeed a rare privilege to be able to speak in this seminar. I, Shubhodip Das, would like to present a paper which is entitled The Triangle of Masculinity in Anton Chekhov's Uncle Vanya. The play published by Chekhov in 1898 has no single main character, so to speak. Though the eponymous protagonist Vanya stands as a strong contestant as the main character, however, in reality, there is no single dominant character in the entire play. It is perhaps around Elena that the entire male characters revolve. The aim of the paper is to focus on Chekhov's tacit employment of masculinity and how the retired Professor Serbyakov, the Dr. Astrov, and Uncle Vanya form a strong masculine triangle around which the entire play seems to revolve. The paper would humbly attempt to reveal beneath Chekhov's deceptively easygoing and harmless narration certain deeper threads of masculinity, which is sometimes aggressive and more often than not narrated in a very mild mode. This paper, however, does not make any claim to being exhaustive in this respect. Thank you for your attention. I hope this seminar will be a crowning success. Thank you so much.
A very good morning to the esteemed panelists. Thank you for selecting my paper for presentation at the webinar organized by your institution. The title of my paper is The Story of the Woman, Exploring the Female Voice in Catherine Mansfield's The Woman at the Store. Now, this paper intends to highlight the ways in which Catherine Mansfield brought out or betrayed the female voice in her narratives. The Edwardian era that was ushering the entry of Catherine Mansfield into the arena of modernist fiction was reformulating itself on multifarious levels, on social, political, historical, cultural, and economic levels. They were mass movements which were bearing the causes of the various sections of the society, and they were being rationalized and executed in ways in which they were paving the path for the renovation of the societal patterns which were governing the identities of the units inhabiting the society. Such renovations called for a repositioning of the peripheral voices. Now, out of this exercise, an enlightened voice devoid of any kind of repression was to emerge. One such peripheral voice was that of the woman, the female voice. Now, in his Rhetoric of Fiction, Wayne C. Booth points out that a prominent device of a storyteller is to go beneath the surface of the action to unearth the clandestine chambers of the characters' minds. Now, working by the spirit of the age, Catherine Mansfield more often than not delved into the depths of the female voices to bring them out of the state of paralysis to which they were restricted by centuries of patriarchal functioning. Now, despite her constant vacillation between the desire to reject as well as accept the conventional feminine role, as pointed out by Lucille Cooper in her Is There a Woman in the Text, Mansfield is seen to have championed the technique of highlighting the female protagonists reaching an epiphany of self-identification and breaking free from the social as well as domestic bondages. Now, for this purpose, Mansfield chose the form of the shorter fiction because this allowed her to betray the rare opportune moments of self identification so lacking in the longer forms of narration. In this regard, the present paper intends to explore Mansfield's The Woman at the Store, which betrays a very varying aspect of the search for the feminine voice for identity. Now, why this particular text becomes important is because in this particular text there is a clear power struggle which goes on between the protagonist, who is called the woman, and three male agents of patriarchal identification. Now, in this power struggle, obviously, apparently, the power lies in the hands of the male characters because of their physical, of their cultural, of their social, predominance. But towards the end, we find that this particular female character, who is the protagonist of the narrative, comes out victorious because of her epiphanic identification of the power or the position that she is placed in and the ways in which she can exercise that power. Now, there is a particular twist in the tale which actually allows her to exercise this particular power over the other male characters. Now, that will be discussed during the paper, and this particular twist allows us to understand that power basically lies in the individual, and that is not based on gender of the individual exercising it. The power relies on the execution of the will of the individual, and the individual may or may not be a man. It may be a woman who allows herself to come out of that state of paralysis which I was talking about a little earlier, and allows herself to exercise their power over the male counterparts. So we will discuss how Catherine Mansfield brings out the fact that power does not belong to a particular gender, but belongs to a person who allows herself or himself to exercise it, and how the female voice takes precedence here in this particular narrative. That is what we are going to explore in this particular paper. Thank you for your time. We will discuss about this paper further during the presentation. Thank you.
Hello, this is Rizwana Khatun, Assistant Professor of English from Government Ram Bhajan Rai, NSPG College, Jashpurnagar, Chhattisgarh. Looking South Asian women's fiction through ecofeminist lens. A presentation for international webinar on looking gender through varying lenses. Hi, this is Rizwana Khatun, Assistant Professor, Government Ram Bhajan Rai, NSPG College, Jashpurnagar. The concept of ecofeminism uses the age-old connection between women and nature. The term was coined by Francoise de Ebon in her book Le Feminisme ou la Morte, published in the year 1974. She used the word ecofeminism, I quote, to call upon women to lead an ecological revolution to save the planet. Ecofeminists draw parallels between the abuse of natural environment and women. The central concept of ecofeminism, therefore, is that patriarchal values are harmful to women, children, and environment. The primary aim of my paper is to study the concept of ecofeminism, which is basically a Western concept in South Asian women's fiction. The writers I have chosen are Arundhati Roy from India, Kunjang Shodan from Bhutan, and Uzma Aslam Khan from Pakistan. These women writers highlight the exploitation of women and nature under the patriarchal dominance. Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Thing. Roy's The God of Small Thing won her the Man Booker Prize for Fiction in 1997. Roy had very dexterously tried to bond nature to women in her fiction. In The God of Small Things, Roy chooses a small town called Aimenam near Kottayam in Kerala to narrate the story of Amu, a woman, and her twins Esther and Rahel. The Aimenam house and its surroundings provide a microcosm of all biological elements. The Minachal River that passes through Aimenam has a very close association with the twins' mother, Amu. This river had been mother figure as Amu to the fisherman in Amenam village by providing the daily livelihood for them. The human selfishness to get more ills from the farmland and growing industrialization led to the death of this river. Both Ammu and Meenachal river are two pathetic figures in the fiction who struggled to survive. What patriarchy had done to Ammu is similar to what modernization has done to Meenachal river. Like the surrendered woman Ammu, who lost her life and her love for the whims and fancies of caste and class conscious society and patriarchy, the river panted with all the filth and merges to the sea. In Kunjang Chodden's The Circle of Karma, Kunjang Chodden actually highlights the exploitation of women and nature under the patriarchal dominance. Chodden is the first Bhutanese woman to write a novel in English. In the novel, the protagonist, Zomo, undergoes multiple experiences, especially in relation to nature and patriarchy. The biological reproductive capacities of women are exploited to the fullest and they are forced to give birth to male child. The exploitation of agricultural land and resources is continuous burden on planet, the Mother Earth. Kunjang Chodden depicts nature and women as loving and forgiving in the end, who, even though exploited to fullest, try to forgive the man, while Uzma Aslam Khan's thinner than skin animates mountains, lakes, wind, fire and other elements of nature that echo the complex emotions of a character. Uzma Aslam Khan is a Pakistani author who skillfully depicts a unique women-nature relationships in her novel. Khan dismantles the binary of man-women with regard to their relationship with nature, man's as that of domination and domestication. The setting of the narrative is in the northern region of Pakistan, which is known for its mythical natural beauty and nomadic lifestyle. Khan illustrates the process of growing urbanization and life in metropolitan cities and its deleterious impact on human habitats and communities. In the novel, there are issues of post-colonial environmental concerns. The setting of the narrative is very beautiful. To Nadir, who is a male character in the novel, finds women and nature as beautiful and meaningful as long as he can perceive them through his camera lens and thus remains a slave to an image rather than to reality. Similarly, he finds happiness not in the true relationship of love but sex. Khan points to the attitude of pervasive instrumentalization, whether regarding the women's body or earth body of mountains, glaciers and grasslands. Moving on to conclusion, the three women novelists which I have mentioned are from different countries and culture. All have voiced the exploitation of nature and women by patriarchy. The idea is that since women are more severely affected by the environmental degradation, they therefore have naturally positive attitudes towards the environment, which is shown by these writers. Thank you for listening to me.
Myself, Dr. Shubhamoy Pahadi. My topic is gender equality in Sanskrit literature. So, gender is a primary marker of social and economic stratification. Gender inequality means that men and women are not equal and that gender affects an individual life experiences. The difference between men and women arise from distinctions in biology, psychology, and cultural norms. It can be defined as allowing people different opportunities due to perceived difference based solely on issues of gender. In our society, unequal attitudes towards women create the importance of conferring tremendous attention on the aspects of gender equality and women empowerment. In our Sanskrit literature, there are many in the various aspects in gender inequality. So, we can say, no doubt the Vedic literature, the holy Vedas, have granted very high status to the women in the society. The famous theologian Manu also discussed widely the position of women in our ancient society. Manu had a high regard for women. Here Manu says, na griham grihamityahu grihini grihamuchyate. A house is not transformed to a home till the homemaker declares it. There are some positive reflection on the woman in ancient Sanskrit literature. In our Puranas, the male deities are addressed with their spouse's name, be it Sita Rama, Lakshmi Narayana, Radhe Syam, or Parvati Parameswara. Wife is referred as Ardhangini or better half. In the Mahabharata, world's most famous epic, has powerful, complex women characters that depicts the action of Kuru Pandava in major ways. This epic gives an insight into the values and ethos of the society. Especially the women in the Mahabharata demonstrate a blend of emotion and level-headedness. They exhibit well-balanced emotion and adopt a very human approach to dealing with situation. In this article, I wanted to prove that ancient Sanskrit literature rendered high respect to women. In this article, the methodology of this paper is purely descriptive and required information are collected from different secondary sources like epics, Vedas, Smritis and Puranas and other publications relating to women in the ancient age. Hindu religion books like Vedas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata depict the true picture on ancient Indian society. Manusmriti, Rigveda, Sanghita, Susruta Sanghita, Smritis and Puranas have also been the sources of information to examine the social, domestic, economic, educational, religious and political status of women. In ancient Indian history, Vedas, the most adored Hindu scripture, highlighted the respectable position of women in our society and provide valuable information needed for the manuscript. Rigveda revealed the economic rights of a daughter who resides forever with her parents and the status to this paper. The mentioned the main themes, that is the objectives of the study. The present manuscript is aimed to study. The present manuscript aimed to study is that the role on status of women from ancient time, to investigate whether the status of women in modern India society regarding equality, education, marriage and family life, race and gender, religion and culture is maintained or deteriorate. This paper is also intended to give a awareness and insight into the problems faced by women over the years and their role. The study will help us to imagine the participation of women in social, religious, economics and household matters in the ancient times, mainly Vedic times, and after that the mediatory types of in Sanskrit literature and now also. Here, role of status of women in the Vedic studies, we can say that there are various verses, there are various mantras regarding women's the freedom in the Vedic area. In ancient Vedic time, the women get the freedom enjoyed by ancient women. The degree of freedom given to women to take part in the public activities indicate the nature of the status enjoyed by women during Vedic period. Women never observed Puradha. They enjoyed the freedom and even they enjoyed freedom in selecting their male partners. And next, equal educational opportunities of women. The ancient Vedic culture and also in Sanskrit literature, we can say the women enjoyed the equal educational opportunities for opportunities. They are like we can give example like Maitreyi. We can example that Gargi and so also Lopamudra, Ghosa, etc., etc. And also position of women in matters relating to marriage and family affairs is the most important role that play the women in Indian culture. Position of women in matters relating marriage and family welfare, and also economic production and occupations freedom get the there are the equalization in male and women, men and women, male or female, property rights and inheritance. That we can say that the Yagyavalkya Samhita in our Sanskrit literature, Yagyavalkya Samhita, there are so many slokas, so many sentences according to the same, the equal distribution of the property welfare, and also our Manu Samhita and also Kautilya, the Arthashastra. Then women role in the religious field. In also the religious field, like Rig Veda, in Rig Veda we can say the women enjoyed equal position in the yajna, jatra, in where male and female both are most essential in this yajna, sacrifice, role of women in public life. Then women could sign as debate in public assembly. They usually occupied a prominent place in social gatherings, but they were denied entry into the Sabhas because the places, besides being used for taking political decisions, were also used for gambling, drinking, and such purpose. Status of women during the epic period in women of the epic India enjoyed the most in our two epic Ramayana and Mahabharata. We can say the role of women are very high. In Mahabharata, we can give the example of Draupadi. Draupadi is the central point in the central point of the Mahabharata Kuru Pandava Yudhya. War. That means the epic period of dharma been collected root of dharma, prosperity and enjoyment in both the epic. We find vast reference of the expressing of courage, strong willpower and valor women like Kaikeyi, Sita, Rukmini, Satyabhama, Savitri, Draupadi, etc., etc. Women during the period of Dharma Shastra and Puranas, status of women gradually declined and underwent a major change. The girls were deprived of formal education. Daughters were regarded as second-class citizens. Freedom of women was crucialized. But this is Manu, the lawgiver of Indian society, gave the statement that women have to be the under father during child, under her husband during youth, and under her son during the age at no. And the restriction imposed of social problems in women freedom, restriction imposed of economic problems in women freedom, factors that causes the degradation of women. Women in the Buddhist period, women were not only confined to domestic work, but also they could resort to an educational career if they so desired. In the religious field, women came to occupy a distinctly superior place. Women were permitted to become sannyasi. Many women took a leading role in Buddhist monastics. Ancient women in education, in educational factors, there are some bright exception in the decimal picture. The role of women in ancient India literature. In ancient India had many learned ladies. There are two types of scholarly women: the Brahmavadinis, or the women who never married and cultured the Vedas throughout their lives, and the Sadhujavaha, who studied the Vedas till they married. Panini mentioned of female students studying Veda Katyayana called female teachers Upadhyaya or Upadhyayi. Ancient women in politics, women often enjoyed prominent roles in political. Megasthenes mentioned the Pandya women running the administration, the Satyavahana queen, Nayanik rules kingdom of this is the examples of women in politics. Status of women in the medieval India, there were some, when foreign inquires medieval period, proved the highly disappointing of the Indian women for their status, further deterring during the period. Medieval India was not women ages, it is supposed to be dark age for them. There were the some like rituals, sati, jahar, child marriage, restriction of widow remarriage, puradha system, girl education, and the better status of women in southern India comparatively northern India. There were, we can give the differences, women's strategies reforms. That's all. Here we mainly describe the Sanskrit literature plays a vital role to inequality in our Indian literature, Indian societies. Thank you.
নমস্কার, myself Panu Biswas, Assistant Professor Shebayatun Shikhon Mahavidyalaya, Jhargram, West Bengal. My today's topic is gender representation in the content of 8th grade Bengali language textbook. We are very well known that the nature and phylogenic difference between women and men are universal. The constitution recognizes the equal rights for women and men, but the depiction of women's deprivation is evident in many cases from family to society. So the objective of the study is to investigate the gender representation in Bengali language textbook taught to the student of class 8 for academic year 2019-20 in public school in West Bengal. Qualitative content analysis approach has been employed for the analysis of the selected textbook because it was the most appropriate design for the study. In the present study, the researcher has employed some grid to record the data from the textbook which was recommended by UNESCO, such as sex, age, gender, and actions only. Here the researcher has used the grid as a checklist to compile the detailed characteristics of the gender, and also a systematic data compilation of the characters as depicted in the textbook has been done by using content analysis approach such as appearance of male and female, of their age and occupational role or designations, domestic role of male and female, other activity of men, women, boys and girls. The textbook Sahitya Mela has been enriched with the novel works of various writers and poets. There have 37 number of authors in the book, but women have less participation in writing book. There has only one glaring presence of female author in the textbook, so gender biased have been appeared in the textbook in selecting female authors. So it is the first findings of this study after analysis. The second findings of the study is only 79 numbers of characters have been appeared in the written part of the textbook but male character appeared more than female characters. So it has been clear that male characters dominated the females in terms of appearance in written part of the text, and unequal representation is found in favor of male in terms of appearance of character. Then from the point of designation, it has been clear that male character occupied the maximum designated role. There have 31 number of designation depicted in the textbook. Within those designation, only 16 number of occupational role have been identified only, and all type of occupational role have male oriented and portraying a gender bias scenario. The next finding is very few numbers of male and females engaged in domestic activities. Serving have the highest appearance in the text. The next finding is male has engaged in the football as a sporting activity, but female have engaged in outdoor activity with dancing and selling only. The indoor activity has limited by writing poems only. So, men have been depicted in a wide variety of activities. The study concentrated at picture representations with the textbook. This is because there have some relations between the written content and the image of the text. The last finding is men have portrayed in the picture as a many dignified as well as a challenging role, such as chief of army, writer, traveler, footballer, accountant, but it is clear that the male character have been portrayed more active and challengers than females. So the lastly, I can say that the findings of this study are that there are gender discrimination and also biases in the text in using content and illustrations, women and men, as well as the discrimination and bias is also noticeable in selection of female writers. Therefore, the study suggests that both genders should be represented in an equalized ratio. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all of you. This is Sabina Lucky, and now I am going to discuss about my presentation. The topic of my presentation is approaching gender issues of diasporic individual in Sunitra Gupta's novel titled as Memories of Rain. The present study aims at exploring gender issues as projected in the novel Memories of Rain, written by Sunitra Gupta. Gender issues in the recent global and ideological context occupy central place in the creative, critical or intellectual literary genres. It is novel that has formal flexibility and spatio-temporal ability to accommodate socio-philosophical or polemical issues pertaining to gender approach. This research aims to locate itself at the intersection of gender and diaspora studies, investigating whether the present novel of Sunitra Gupta adheres to or deviates from prevailing gendered hierarchies of the mainstream. Now I am going to discuss the objective. Sunitra Gupta belongs to the Rushdie and post-Rushdie generation of Indian English writers whose members are essentially cosmopolitan in their cultural and linguistic affinities, though they are often read and marketed as predominantly Indian writers in the West. Sunitra Gupta is the author of 4 novels: Memories of Rain, The Glassblower's Breath, and Moonlight into Marzipan and A Scene of Color. Her fiction is characterized by various hues of human relations with a special focus on women and their ability to either tactfully cope with situations or find solutions as per their will. Monideepa, Reba and Isha reflect Sunitra Gupta's concern for women and their problems. The methodology. Sunitra Gupta's dazzling novel Memories of Rain is a reflection on the East-West divide through the marriage of a beautiful Bengali girl, Moni, with Anthony, an Englishman. The character of Mani is an example of how women go through traumatic experiences after the marriage away from their homeland. Physically, she is in London, but emotionally and psychologically, she remains in Calcutta, unable to reside in 2 countries. She experiences prejudice and betrayal from her husband, Anthony. In this context, A famous critic, Cat Millett, says, because of the social circumstances, male and female are really two cultures and their life experiences are completely different. Gender has a psychological or cultural rather than biological connotations. If the proper terms for sex are male and female, the corresponding terms for general are the masculine and feminine. Moni is a victim of hegemonic masculinity. The infidelity of her English husband Anthony is unbearable for her. She realizes that he has cheated her, but she refuses to be unhappy and disappointed. She walks out of his life with dignity. She makes a wise choice to leave him with her child. As an empowered woman, free from any type of ill feelings, memory creates a healing space for Moni, where nostalgia for her dear Calcutta and compassion towards humanity becomes possible. Moni's departure from London is her departure from oppression, and her refusal to continue the marriage is a powerful elucidation of departure from an obedience to what Beauvoir calls gender roles. Now I am going to discuss the findings. Sunita Gupta has portrayed women as a courageous being with firm determination and strength and stray willpower. Moni of Memories of Rain travels from India to London, symbolic to her journey from an innocent and adaptive girl into a mature and practical woman. Moni decides to break off her marital bond and go back to India. Sunita Gupta in fact adheres to the feminist stance in terms of her perceptions of women's plights through different phases of their lives in their national and international background. Now I am going to conclude my presentation. Sunita Gupta cannot be judged or addressed as a feminist writer prima facie, but an in-depth readings and analysis of her novels underscore her feminist concerns. She provides a gendered readings of society while not making a militant policy.
Welcome everyone, viewers and esteemed speakers. My name is Nishantika Kundu and I would like to thank Shiliguri B.Ed College's Gender Sensitization Committee, which in collaboration with the IQAC Shiliguri B.Ed College have organized this webinar and have provided me with this opportunity to share my views on the topic, looking at gender through varying lenses. Discussion on gender have become extremely imperative to the cause of social development, especially when gender discrimination, which has been prevalent in the society for eons, have robbed many of their opportunities that they deserved for their own success. Although various approaches of feminism have paved way for the oppressed genders through implementation of rights to safeguard their choices and preferences, yet the social acceptance of the same remains pending. And on this slide, I would like to discuss the importance of discussion about our problems within a welcoming sisterhood where women can talk about their problems and traumas in a shared space. In the inherent patriarchy that dominates the society is in sharp contrast to Swami Vivekananda's notions, which were based on the fact that both men and women need to play equal roles for the progress of the nation. Even the seemingly socially privileged ones undergo this domination, and something that Marjane Satrapi portrays in her graphic novel Embroideries to show how women are constantly judged on the basis of their behavior and codes of conduct. Satrapi portrays a group of women of varying ages who extensively and uninhibitedly discuss their conjugal lives, their failing marriages, and the dire need to save abusive relationships just to avoid social judgment. So her hilarious narrative style veils the morose truth but also successfully puts forth the women's predicament. A similarity of this revealing kind of narrative can be traced back to the post-structuralist French feminist Ella Sijou's path-breaking essay, The Laugh of Medusa, where she emphasizes on the excess of feminine being celebratory. She says how women are constantly alienated from their bodies and its experiences and forced into subjugation by norms and rules, and that impacts their creative genius massively. And she also distinctly argues how we should break from the normative masculine narrative styles and create a narrative style completely of our own, of women's own, namely the écriture feminine. Satrapi too creates a narrative style like that. Not only does she provide the excess and vulgar details of the private lives of these women, but she also denies to adopt a conventional way of attempting a graphic novel, a common factor of which is painting in grids and panels. She goes for the excess, eccentric, and incomprehensible inconsistency of the women narratives that are that should be celebrated by disregarding the prescribed method. The lives which are otherwise in a constant state of mercy of the women at the hands of fathers, husbands, and sons find themselves comforted in similar situations as experienced by the others while they discuss their problems with each other. This unapologetic discussion momentarily liberates them from these constricted experiences of their lives. The alienation of the body that Siju talks about becomes a focal point of the discussion, who are asked to abstain from exploring their own bodies because a sense of honor is attached to a woman's body. Therefore, although these women practically lack freedom of choices, they choose to feel liberation in the company of fellow sisters without being judged on the basis of so-called morality. Another facet of the novel that is imperative to the purpose of this paper is that the women striving to stay young, to satisfy their male partners, or for male validation, which is valued so much in our society. In conclusion of my paper, I would like to suggest that acts of resistance does not always need to be a spectacle of the masses. It can be found in simple gestures of discussions and conversations, and in the most simple acts and gestures, like the one in embroideries. The content of discussion of these women in embroideries traditionally might not be intellectual, and however vulgar they might seem on the surface, is actually shows us that what liberation or emancipation entails. A structure that turns a woman against a woman needs more sisterhoods to be created, which acknowledges, shares, and validates their pain, strengthening the feminine. To find emancipation not temporarily, but permanently, by breaking the cage altogether. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Saurabh De. I am a research scholar from Sikomskill University, Bolpur. My topic name is the positions of women in urban society as presented in the works of Chetan Bhagat. Subjugations and abnegations are always the fate of women. Long back from the past, actually, they suffered as independent species. They are essentially tortured and downtrodden in the name of protection. Women confront oppression, aggression, inequality, and discriminations in every walks of life, be it family, society, or the workstations. This phenomenon is not restricted to rural dwelling. Rather, the same configuration is holding a prominence in social hierarchy of urban life. But education has eventually empowered women and provided them the impetus to have faith in them and help them consolidate their feet on the strong ground of their own identity, equal mentality, and determination. Chetan Bhagat is the surging face who portrays the women protagonist in a firm temperament. He depicts that females are not in any way beneath the males. Instead, they are complementary to each other. The present paper will investigate and assess the efficacy and perspicacity of women in the urban society and show their vigor and aggression as observed in the works of Chetan Bhagat. Domestic violence has been a frequent occurrence and females are always at peril. In two states, Kavita, Krish mother is a female character who suffered a lot at the hand of her husband. Further figure is true manifestations of the personality who accused his wife for a very trivial incident. Maybe for that reason he didn't take any initiative. And if any oppression and protestation occurred against this atrocity, he started alleging his own wife. And I quote, "You are responsible for bringing him up like this." My father screamed at my mother. I heard the sound of a glass being smashed against the wall. Slap, slap. My father interrupted my mother. I heard a few more slaps. I saw my mother's hand covering her face. A piece of glass had cut her forearms. Unquote. Page 196. The next generation is not so meek that they accept orthodox without incurring any questions. In the present novel, the female protagonist Ananya is very smart, courageous, spunky to take any decision and has the mental firmness to persuade people and protest against the wrong deeds. When all the elders apparently failed to save the wedding between Duke and Minty, Ananya turned up as a savior. She persuaded Duke that the car, as bribe his parents demanded, was unjust. She shook the foundation of his superiority. She said, and I quote, "Do you know that Minty's parents had to go through to do this wedding for you? That car cost 2.5 years of your salary. Mr. Duke, these two parties have thrown them into debt. Now you want an accent. It won't be your accent. It will be what you managed to wrench out of a helpless father who didn't want a drama at his daughter's wedding to turn into scandal." Unquote. Page 253. Duke realized and stood straightforward and convinced his parents. Finally, marriage took place. Now I concluded by saying that Chetan Bhagat has suggested implicitly that it was education that inculcates freedom of speech, independent sensibility and clear vision to their mind and heart, and all of this in return ignite in them the fire not to follow the age-old traditional concept and thinkings piloted down to the young generations through ages, but to adjust between traditional value and modern life. Thank you very much.
Good evening to the respected teachers and audience present here. My name is Pujita Roy and I am doing a joint paper with Shirin Agnes Topo and Priyanka Chakraborty. We are from South Calcutta Girls College, Kolkata, and we are studying Sociology Honours. My topic is the portrayal of women in literature based on the views of Rabindranath Tagore and Ashapurna Devi. The Indian rural women have been constantly and deliberately sidelined in the patriarchal society. Rabindranath Tagore's writing on his novels and short stories depicts the erased portion of women's experience, emotion, and plight of women which was unfamiliar during this period. In his famous Bengali novel Chokher Bali, published in 1903, he speaks about a widow woman named Binodini. Binodini rejects the strict rules that is ascribed to her by the society. Binodini clearly denies to accept her fate and attempt to seek what she feels she deserves. She is smart, educated, and tries to be more than just an auspicious widow. Though she was a lonely widow, but she did not want to suppress her sexual and emotional desire towards the end. Tagore depicts through the character Binodini, though she was a widow, she wanted to bring a change as much as she could to improve the condition of women. Binodini highlights the importance of education. If I had been educated like others, I would have been easily endure negligence. When we relate to the contemporary time, we see that the literacy rate of women in India is 65.46%, whereas the male literacy rate is over 80%. An example is Malala Yousafzai in Pakistan. She was from Pakistan, and she was an activist of female education. She fought for education. A woman is not given importance or even education in the society. One actually has to fight for education even till now. And even though the widow remarriage takes place in the society, but one usually sees them in a negative way. Then we come to the next novel of Rabindranath Tagore, Jogajog. He highlights the issue of material rape here. The story revolves around the underline between two families, the Chatterjees and Ghoshal. Kumudi is married to Madhusudan, where she had to follow all rituals and traditional way of life. Her mental image of the husband is someone who embody all the qualities of God, but her view shattered when after marriage, when she found out the cruel, vulgar, arrogant side of her husband. She was also not ready to share the conjugal bed, but she was forced to do it. Now, rape, it does not only take place in history, it still happens today. In 2019, in India, in New Delhi, we have seen average of 80% daily rape cases happening by research. And it is all over the social media. The recent case where a 22-year-old Dalit woman died after being allegedly sexually assaulted by two youth in Gaziri police station area of Balampur. The society needs to change for better. Now, contradictory, we come to the stories of Ashapurna Devi. She was a prominent Bengali woman novelist. She focused on women, elegant, gender-biased, sexist minded of men. Ashapurna Devi, she wrote a novel. The novel deals with the lives of three generations of women in the early 19th century, namely Protham Pratishruti, Subharnalata, and last is Gokul Kotha. Protham Pratishruti is a story of Satyavati who got married at the age of 8. She had to maintain the social norm and was kept in strict Brahmanical regulation. It basically shows the struggle of a fighting against the patriarchal society and not wanting her girl Subharnalata to get married at the early age. Then we come to the next part, Subharnalata. Subharnalata was actually, even she was given married at a very small age, even though her mother did not wanted that, and she mainly revolved around the pathetic circumstances and oppression she faced at that point of the time. With the Orthodox family, she had voices of her own. Though Subharnalata was strong and courageous, she was also kind and generous. Her husband, Feroz, was an Orthodox man who always looked at a noble intention with a suspicious thought. Later in the novel, it presents Subharnalata's realization is bringing about a change in the Orthodox society. It also depicts her daily struggle and turmoil to win the little victory and hardship that she had been facing. Then next is the Gokul Kotha. Gokul Kotha may also, they have showed the struggle that a woman is facing, but Gokul was educated. But still, the problem which she was facing in the society, even though she was an educated person. When we compare the situation to the present scenario, we see that men, they have a higher position in the society, from decision making to taking all the pride. It has been seen from the past that woman has no shelter of her own. Either she's been told that she stays in a dad's home, the next comes the husband's home, and next is the son's home. So there's no, even if she has her own home, she brought it by her own, people would say, or people would always put the men in a higher position to always show that the man rules over the woman. Female infanticide too takes place, and prenatal sex was banned in India in 1994 to protect the girl child from being killed. But in recent case of 20th September 2020, we see that a man rapes open pregnant wife's stomach to find out the gender of baby. This incident took place in Uttar Pradesh. This shows how unsafe a woman is in the society. The novel of Rabindranath Tagore and Ashapurna Devi uplift the similarities between the portrait character and a real life. Though this novel brought up a revolution, still negativity exists in the society. Candle March cannot help the society. Education and better law is a must. Thank you.
Good evening, respected sir and ma'am. This is Ritika Shah from Indira Gandhi National Open University, student of Masters in English. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about my paper on this platform. So the topic of my paper is Colonized Women in Post-Colonized India, a discourse on the constraints of women through Tara and Clear Light of Day. I've chosen these two Indian texts because they are modern texts in Indian context. First, I will talk about Tara by Mahesh Dattani. This is an Indian drama of 2 acts which shows the story of Siamese twins Chandan and Tara. Through certain disturbing revelations, the relationship between the 2 siblings is disbalanced, and Chandan is forced to carry the unfair burden of guilt which he cannot escape. Dattani in his play shows certain stereotypical gender roles, which is my main concern in the text, and ensure the continuation of tradition and rituals. Woman stays at home and nurture the children and take care of the house, which Bharati does, the mother of 2 children, and men go out for work like Mr. Patel, the father. Mr. Patel, the family's head, always gave importance to Chandan and wanted to send him to abroad for studies, whereas Tara, who is weaker than Chandan, is not the part of this plan. In fact, in Act 1, she explains the conversation between her father and brother to Rupa, who is known as so-called normal and offensive, basically plays as a counterpoint to Chandan and Tara, that the men in the house were deciding on whether they were going to go hunting while the women looked after the cave. All she wanted was to be strong, healthy, beautiful. There are certain gender identity issues that are shown in this play. One instance is the scene in Act 1 where Bharati was knitting a sweater for Tara, and Chandan points out that she dropped a stitch. Then Chandan started helping his mother with her knitting, and at this moment Mr. Patel enters and calls forth his views on gender identity. He accuses Bharati of having taken over Tara completely and deliberately. Here we have a complex situation. The narrative of this text moves in a seesaw movement where one such revelation of twins' birth is shown. The twins had 3 legs between them, and the third leg was fed by the girl's blood system. The chances of the leg's survival were greater with the girl, but Bharati and her father had decided to take risk giving the leg to the boy. The leg has survived for 2 days, while it could have been Tara's forever. This happened completely because of the influence of the patriarchal society, which says, give boy the life, and girls are killed with desperate motives. Here Tara makes the sacrifice which goes in vain. Another sacrifice which is made by Bharati for her daughter, which she does out of guilt. She donates her 1 kidney to Tara, but this too goes in vain as later she dies. So the sacrifices made by the women are taken for granted and are useless, but are forced to sacrifice anyways. Next, I will get hold on Anita Desai's Clear Light of Day. This novel deals with Das Chronicle in 4 parts. Desai is a feminist writer and differs from other feminists as she emphasizes individual salvation through self-exploration and motivation. The women characters in the novel are fully devoted to household chores and living as submissive creatures obeying men's demand. Desai deal with the women's psychic complexities. Here, Bim, who is also known as Bimla, is melancholic, disillusioned and withdrawn. Here we also see the self-sacrifice as Bim remains unmarried to take care of her sick brother Baba. Bim is who is financially independent, is basically shown as the caretaker of the old rented house which she lives in with her brother, and takes care of the people around her. Such incidents like when Meera Masi and her another brother Raja falls in, and she takes care of them. Here Desai shows the prime function of women in society, mothering the others. Women's needs and aspirations are denied by the societal pressure, and she has to take care of the feminine roles which the patriarchal society approves. Married women are totally dependent on their husband, like Tara, Bim's another sister. Independent women has to take the responsibility indoors and outdoors equally, like Bim. And the widowed and the abandoned women has to play the role of surrogate mother reluctantly. So the oppression and suppression of the patriarchal society still remains after independence, but only the nature has changed. Women are still the second choice. They have to play certain gender roles and have to sacrifice selflessly whether they want it or not. So I would like to conclude by saying that the plight of women has not changed greatly in the post-colonial India, and becoming mere financially independent will not do away with the women's subalternity in decolonized India. Thank you.
নমস্কার, আমার নাম সাথী নদী। আমি দিল্লি পাবলিক স্কুল হাওড়ার বাংলা বিভাগের সহশিক্ষিকা। আমার আজকের আলোচ্য বিষয় হলো বিভূতিভূষণের পথের পাঁচালী নারী চরিত্ররা। বিভূতিভূষণ বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায় বাংলা সাহিত্যের 3 বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায়ের মধ্যে অন্যতম। যে কোনো মহৎ কাজ যেমন সময়কে ছাপিয়ে অমর হয়ে যায়, ঠিক তেমনই বিভূতিভূষণের সাহিত্য সৃষ্টি আজও বাংলার সাহিত্য জগতে অমর হয়ে রয়েছে। পল্লী প্রকৃতি, পল্লী জীবন, পল্লী গ্রামের মানুষেরাই ছিল তাঁর লেখার প্রধান উপজীব্য। বিভূতিভূষণের উপন্যাস ও ছোট গল্পগুলিতে আমরা প্রায়শই দেখতে পাই পল্লী প্রকৃতি ও মানুষ মিলেমিশে একাকার হয়ে গিয়েছে। তাঁর রচিত বিখ্যাত উপন্যাসগুলির মধ্যে অন্যতম বিখ্যাত উপন্যাস হল পথের পাঁচালী। পথের পাঁচালী উপন্যাসটি প্রথম 1929 খ্রিস্টাব্দে গ্রন্থাকারে প্রকাশিত হয়। এই উপন্যাসে আমরা ঔপন্যাসিকের শৈশবের স্মৃতি খুঁজে পাই। বিভূতিভূষণ এই উপন্যাসটিকে 3টি খণ্ডে বিভক্ত করেছিলেন: বলালি বালাই, আমাটির ঘেপু ও অক্রুর সংবাদ। মানুষের অদেখা জীবনের সাদা কালো ছবিকে সেলুলয়েডের ফিতায় সাজিয়ে এই উপন্যাসটিকে আরও একটি অন্য মাত্রা দিয়েছিলেন আর এক মহারথী সত্যজিৎ রায়। 1955 খ্রিস্টাব্দে এই উপন্যাসটি চলচ্চিত্র আকারে প্রেক্ষাগৃহে প্রদর্শিত হয় এবং 1956 খ্রিস্টাব্দে কান আন্তর্জাতিক চলচ্চিত্র উৎসবে এটি প্রথম আন্তর্জাতিক পুরস্কার লাভ করে। বিভূতিভূষণ উপন্যাসে নিষ্ঠুরতা ক্রূরতা নেই বললেই চলে, তবে গ্রাম্য কুটিলতা যথেষ্ট আছে। বিভূতিভূষণ উপন্যাসের পুরুষ চরিত্ররা অতিমাত্রায় ভালো, তবে নারী চরিত্ররা অনেক বেশি স্বাভাবিক এবং জীবন্ত। বলা বাহুল্য এটি একটি নারীকেন্দ্রিক উপন্যাস। এই উপন্যাসে সর্বজয়া, ইন্দির ঠাকুরুন, দুর্গা এরাই তো প্রধান চরিত্র। অপু তো কেবল এক দ্রষ্টা, এক ভাষ্যকার। উপন্যাসের প্রথম পর্ব বল্লালী বালাইতে আমরা ইন্দির ঠাকুরুনকে হরিহরের সংসারে এক প্রকার আপদ বালাই রূপে দেখতে পাই। তৎকালীন যুগে ঔপনিবেশিক কুলীন সমাজের যুগকাষ্ঠে বলি প্রদত্ত নারীদের মধ্যে অন্যতম ছিলেন ইন্দির ঠাকুরুন। ইন্দির ঠাকুরুনের একান্ত নিজস্ব বলতে কিছুই ছিল না। থাকার মধ্যে ছিল কেবল তার স্বামীর বারতিনেক দর্শন এবং তার অকাল মৃতা কন্যা বিশ্বেশ্বরীর বেদনাতুরা স্মৃতি। তৎকালীন যুগে কৌলিন্য প্রথার বলিস্বরূপ ইন্দির ঠাকুরুনের মতো কুলীন নারীরা কেবলমাত্র সামাজিক স্তরেই নয়, সাংসারিক স্তরেও ছিল উপেক্ষিত ও অবাঞ্ছিত। সর্বজয়া উপন্যাসে অপুর মা। বিভূতিভূষণ এক স্থানে বলেছিলেন, সর্বজয়ার একটা অস্পষ্ট ভিত্তি আছে, আমার মা। বিভূতিভূষণের পিতাও হরিহরের ন্যায় সংসার সম্পর্কে যথেষ্ট উদাসীন ছিলেন এবং বিভূতিভূষণের মা ও সর্বজয়া উভয়েই চিরটা কাল কেবল সংসারের অভাব, অনটন, দুঃখ, দারিদ্র্যের সঙ্গে লড়াই করে গিয়েছেন। উপন্যাসে একদিকে যেমন সর্বজয়াকে আমরা মুখহরা নিষ্ঠুর চরিত্রে দেখতে পাই তার ঈর্ষাকাতর রূপটিকে, ঠিক তেমনি উপন্যাসের আরেক দিকে আমরা সর্বজয়ের মধ্যে লক্ষ্য করি এক স্নেহময়ী জননী রূপকে, দেখতে পাই তার প্রখর আত্মমর্যাদা বোধ। ভাগলপুরে থাকাকালীন বিভূতিভূষণ এক তেলহীন রুক্ষ চুলের একটি মেয়েকে দেখেছিলেন। ওই চরিত্রটির অনুসরণে পথের পাঁচালীতে দুর্গা চরিত্রটির অবতারণা করেছেন তিনি। এ বিষয়ে আরও একটা তথ্য জানা যায়, বিভূতিভূষণ আপন বোনকে দুর্গা বলে ডাকতেন। শোনা যায় সেও অতি অল্প বয়সে মারা গিয়েছিল। উপন্যাসে সর্বজয়া ও ইন্দির ঠাকুরুনের অসহায়ত্ব ঠিক যতটা স্পষ্ট, ততটাই স্পষ্ট দুর্গার একাকিত্ব। এই তিন চরিত্রের মনোজগতের বিশ্লেষণের প্রচেষ্টায় আমার প্রবন্ধ বিভূতিভূষণের পথের পাঁচালী উপন্যাসের নারী চরিত্রেরা। নমস্কার, ধন্যবাদ।
নমস্কার, আমি ইন্দ্রাণী গাঙ্গুলি, রবীন্দ্রভারতী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের বাংলা বিভাগের গবেষক। আমার আজকের বলার বিষয় বাণী বসুর ছোট গল্পে পৌরাণিক ও মহাকাব্যিক আখ্যানের নবভাষ্যে নারীবাদী ভাবনার প্রকাশ। পৃথিবীর ইতিহাসের এক যুগান্তকারী ঘটনা ফরাসি বিপ্লবের বাণী ছিল সাম্য, মৈত্রী এবং স্বাধীনতা, যার রেশ ধরে ব্রিটিশ লেখক তথা চিন্তাবিদ মেরি wollstonecraft সমাজে নারীর সমশিক্ষা এবং সমমর্যাদার অধিকারের পক্ষে সওয়াল করেছিলেন। বিংশ শতাব্দীর মধ্যপর্বে এসে ফরাসি বস্তুবাদী লেখক সিমন দ্য বোভের তার গবেষণালব্ধ গ্রন্থ দ্য সেকেন্ড সেক্সে সভ্যতার দীর্ঘ ইতিহাসে নারীর অবস্থান পর্যবেক্ষণ করে এমন সিদ্ধান্তে এসে পৌঁছেছিলেন যে শিশু তার লিঙ্গ পরিচয় সম্পর্কে নিজে সচেতন থাকে না, তাকে নারী হিসেবে নির্মাণ করে পিতৃতান্ত্রিক সমাজ। One is not born but rather becomes a woman. পিতৃতান্ত্রিক সভ্যতার অন্যতম দান লিঙ্গ বৈষম্যের বিরুদ্ধে সমতা এবং অধিকার অর্জনের লক্ষ্যে পাশ্চাত্যে 19 এবং 20 শতকে নারীবাদী আন্দোলনের প্রথম এবং দ্বিতীয় তরঙ্গ আছড়ে পড়েছিল। নারীবাদী আন্দোলন এবং নারীবাদী তত্ত্বে আবহমান কাল ধরে চলে আসা লিঙ্গ বৈষম্যের তীব্র বিরোধিতা এবং সমমর্যাদা লাভের পথ অনুসন্ধান, এই বিষয় দুটি অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ হয়ে উঠেছে। প্রাগাধুনিক ধর্মকেন্দ্রিক সাহিত্য সেকালের সমাজ বাস্তবতারই দলিল। নারীর অধিকারহীনতা, তার অধিকার অর্জনের সংগ্রাম, জয় পরাজয়, নারীর বিবিধ অবমাননা, পিতৃতান্ত্রিক কূটকৌশলে পরাভূত নারীর স্বাধীন সত্তার বিবর্তমান আলেখ্য সন্ধানে আধুনিক সাহিত্যকারেরা বারবার মহাকাব্য এবং পুরাণের কাহিনীর নবভাষ্য রচনায় আগ্রহী হয়েছেন। বাংলা কথা সাহিত্যের একজন শক্তিমান লেখক বাণী বসুও তার ব্যতিক্রম নন। পুরাণ এবং মহাকাব্যের নানা আখ্যানে ক্ষমতা কায়েম রাখার প্রশ্নে, উত্তরাধিকারী লাভের প্রয়োজনে এবং যে কোনো ধরনের রাজনৈতিক এবং সামাজিক সমঝোতা বা চুক্তির শর্ত হিসেবে নারীকে বারবার ব্যবহার করেছে সেকালের পিতৃতন্ত্র। বলা বাহুল্য, আজকের দিনেই বা এমন মানসিকতা বা মনোভাবের কতটুকু পরিবর্তন আমরা দেখতে পাই। এ বিষয়ে সেই প্রাচীন রাজতন্ত্রের সঙ্গে বর্তমান বিশ্বায়নের শরিক আধুনিক গণতন্ত্রের ফারাক খুব সামান্যই। নিজের জীবন, শরীর, যাপন এগুলো সম্পর্কে যারা কখনোই কোনো সিদ্ধান্ত নিতে পারেনি, শুধুমাত্র পিতৃতন্ত্রের ক্রীড়ানক হয়েছে আজীবন, তাদের কাহিনী। তেমন পৌরাণিক তথা মহাকাব্যিক নারীদের কাহিনী নিয়ে ছোট গল্প লিখেছেন বাণী বসু। প্রাচীন সাহিত্যের নারীদের নিরুচ্চার যন্ত্রণাকে তিনি নবভাষ্য দান করেছেন। তার সমসাময়িক কথাকার নবনীতা দেবসেনের মতো মহাকাব্যের প্রচলিত কাহিনীগুলির কোনো বিকল্প ভাষ্য তিনি রচনা করেননি। মূল কাহিনীক্রম তিনি অক্ষুণ্ণ রেখেছেন এবং মূল কাহিনীক্রম অপরিবর্তিত রেখেই নারীর অধিকারহীনতা, তার বারবার করে ব্যবহৃত হওয়া এবং লিঙ্গ বৈষম্যের তীব্রতা এই কাহিনীগুলিতে স্পষ্ট করে তুলেছেন। তার লেখা গল্প রেণুকা এবং কপিল ব্যর্থ মাতৃত্ব তথা অবমানিত মাতৃত্বের কথা বলে। সূর্য সংজ্ঞা গল্পে আমরা দেখি দাম্পত্যে নারী পুরুষের সম্পর্ক প্রভু ও ভৃত্যের সমতুল্য। তুলসী পুরাণ গল্পে দেখি সমর্পিতা প্রেমময়ী নারীর ওপর নেমে আসে বিশ্বাসভঙ্গের নিষ্ঠুর আঘাত। লক্ষণ, আদি পর্ব, খেলাঘর, সরসজ্জায়, মহাপ্রস্থানের পথে ইত্যাদি গল্পগুলিতে আমরা দেখি যে নারী পণ্য স্বরূপ। পাঞ্চজন্য গল্পে আমরা দেখি অসহায় নারীর উত্তরণের সহায়ক হয়েছে কোনো পুরুষ নয়, আরো কয়েকজন অসহায় নারী। বাণী বসুর গল্পগুলোতে কোনো অলৌকিক অসম্ভব উপায়ে নারীর জিতে যাওয়ার উইশফুল থিঙ্কিং নেই। গল্পকার এখানে ধর্মের মোড়ক সরিয়ে সমাজ বাস্তবতাকে নিরীক্ষণ করেছেন। অলৌকিকতার জাল ভেদ করে চরিত্রের যুক্তিগ্রাহ্য মনস্তাত্ত্বিক স্বরূপ অন্বেষণ করেছেন। লিঙ্গ বৈষম্যকে প্রাচীনতম শ্রেণীদ্বন্দ্ব হিসেবে চিহ্নিত করে আধুনিক তত্ত্ব নারীবাদ লিঙ্গ সমতা অর্জনের লক্ষ্যে যাত্রা করেছে। নারীর ক্ষমতায়নের প্রশ্নে অগ্রাধিকার নয়, সমানাধিকারী লাভই যার মুখ্য উদ্দেশ্য। সাহিত্য সমাজেরই কথকতা করে চলে। সাম্যচেতনার প্রয়োজনীয়তা অনুভব করেই প্রাচীন সাহিত্যে পুরুষের কলমে চিত্রিত নারীর নানা কাহিনী নবভাষ্য তথা আধুনিক ভাষ্য কালান্তরে নারীর কলমে রচিত হয়েছে। ধন্যবাদ, নমস্কার।
প্রবন্ধের বিষয় রবীন্দ্র ছোট গল্পে নারী জীবন, দুঃখ দুর্দশা ও তা থেকে উত্তরণের দিশা। সুপ্রাচীন কাল থেকে শুরু করে বর্তমান সময় পর্যন্ত সমাজে নারীদের অবস্থান মোটেই সুখকর ছিল না। নারীদের প্রতি অনেক অবমাননা, লাঞ্ছনার পরিচয় পাই আমরা নানাভাবে। বিভিন্ন লেখকের রচনাতেও এই সমস্ত দিকগুলি ফুটে উঠেছে। রবীন্দ্রনাথও তার কয়েকটি ছোট গল্পে নারী শোষণের এই দিকটি তুলে ধরেছেন এবং তা থেকে উত্তরণের দিশাও দেখিয়েছেন। প্রথমেই বলবো দেনা পাওনা গল্পের নিরুপমার কথা। সমাজে প্রচলিত অভিশপ্ত পণ প্রথা কিভাবে একটি মেয়ের জীবনকে মৃত্যুর মুখে ঠেলে দিয়েছে এবং তার পরিবারকে সর্বশান্ত করে দিয়েছে, তারই করুণ কাহিনী দেনা পাওনা গল্পটি। আবার হৈমন্তী গল্পে দেখি কেবলমাত্র রূপবতী এবং সর্বগুণ সম্পন্না হলেই সংসারে মেয়েদের মূল্য থাকে না, থাকতে হবে পৈতৃক সম্পত্তিও। হৈমন্তীর কম বয়সে বিবাহ হয়নি বলে সমাজের নারীদের দ্বারাই হৈমন্তীকে লাঞ্ছিত হতে দেখি। অনেক সময় মানসিক নির্যাতনও যে শারীরিক নির্যাতনকে হার মানায় তার প্রমাণ পাই হৈমন্তীর মৃত্যুর মধ্য দিয়ে। পুরুষতান্ত্রিক সমাজে নারীদের চাওয়া পাওয়ার মূল্য কোনোদিনই ছিল না। নষ্টনীর গল্পের চারুলতাকে দেখি স্বামী কর্তৃক প্রাপ্ত নিঃসঙ্গ জীবনে সে যখন অমলকে আঁকড়ে ধরতে চেয়েছে, অমল তাকে তখন তার ইচ্ছে পূরণের পন্থা হিসাবে অবলম্বন করেছে এবং শেষ মুহূর্তে বিদেশে পাড়ি দিয়েছে চারুলতাকে প্রত্যাখ্যান করে। গল্পের শেষে দেখি দুই চারুলতার স্বামী এবং অমল এই দুই পুরুষই চারুলতাকে বঞ্চিত করেছে।
সমাজ প্রবর্তিত কুপ্রথাগুলি যেমন কুলীন প্রথা, সহমরণ, এগুলিও মেয়ে তৎকালীন অনেক মেয়ের জীবনকেই নষ্ট করেছে। এরকমই একটি উদাহরণ হলো মহামায়া গল্পের মহামায়া চরিত্রটি। রবীন্দ্রনাথ কেবলমাত্র নারীদের সমস্যা কেন্দ্রিক জীবনকেই তার গল্পগুলির মধ্যে তুলে ধরেননি, কয়েকটি গল্পের মাধ্যমে তিনি নারীদের দুঃখ যন্ত্রণা থেকে উত্তরণের পথও দেখিয়েছেন। যেমন স্ত্রীর পত্রে দেখি মৃণাল হৈমন্তী বা নিরুপমার মতো সংসারের জাতাকলে নিজের জীবনকে পিষ্ট হতে দেয়নি। সংসারের লাঞ্ছনা থেকে নিজেকে মুক্ত করার জন্য সে কিন্তু পাড়ি দিয়েছে অজানার পথে। আবার শাস্তি গল্পে দেখি স্বামী কর্তৃক প্রাপ্ত অপমান, খুনি অপবাদ চন্দরা কিন্তু খুব সহজেই মেনে নেয়নি। যে স্বামীর কাছ থেকে সে এত বড় বিশ্বাসঘাতকতা পেয়েছে, যে স্বামীর কাছ থেকে সে খুনি অপবাদ পেয়েছে, যার কারণে সমাজে তার মাথা নিচু হয়েছে, মৃত্যুর মুহূর্তেও সেই স্বামীর মুখ একবারের জন্য দর্শন করতে চায়নি চন্দরা। রবীন্দ্র ছোট গল্পের আর এক বিদ্রোহিণী নারী হলো অনিলা। তার স্বামী ছিল সংসারের প্রতি উদাসীন, স্ত্রীর প্রতিও উদাসীন। সে কেবল নিজের স্ত্রীকে তার দলের খাদ্য যোগানকারী হিসাবে ব্যবহার করেছে। এই সময়ই পাড়ার প্রতিবেশী আর এক যুবক শীতাংশু মৌলির লুব্ধ দৃষ্টি যখন অনিলার উপর পড়েছিল, তখন এই দুই পুরুষের হাত থেকেই নিজেকে মুক্ত করার জন্য অনিলা পাড়ি দিয়েছে অজানার পথে। পরস্ত্রীকাতর স্বামীর নিষ্ঠুরতা, অবমাননার শিকার আর এক নারী হলেন মানভঞ্জন গল্পের গিরিবালা। গিরিবালা কিন্তু স্বামীর অত্যাচারে নিজেকে পিষ্ট হতে দেয়নি। তার স্বামী তার প্রতি বঞ্চনা করছে বলে সে কিন্তু নিজের রূপ যৌবনকেও নষ্ট হতে দেয়নি, বরং সে সমাজে প্রতিষ্ঠিত হয়েছে এবং প্রতিষ্ঠিত হয়ে তার স্বামীকে শাস্তি দিয়েছে।
Good evening everyone. It is my joint paper presentation with Preeti Shaw. We both are from Department of Sociology from South Calcutta Girls College, Kolkata. Today my topic is সাহিত্যে লিঙ্গগত সমস্যায় তৎকালীন সময়ে নারী শিক্ষায় বিদ্যাসাগর। আমরা এই অধ্যয়নের বিষয়টি বেছে নিয়েছি কারণ নারীদের সম্মান, সুরক্ষা, শিক্ষার ব্যাপারে আলোচনা করতে গেলে যার নাম সর্বোপরি উঠে আসে তিনি হচ্ছেন ঈশ্বরচন্দ্র বিদ্যাসাগর মহাশয়। নবজাগরণের প্রতিমূর্তি এই সংস্কৃত পণ্ডিত। তিনি কুসংস্কারচ্ছন্ন পরিবেশ থেকে নারীদের মুক্তি লাভ করতে সম্ভব করেছিলেন। তিনি বলেছেন যে নারীর উন্নতি ছাড়া দেশের উন্নয়ন কখনো সম্ভব হয় না। তাই আমরা এই ধরনের বিষয়টি বেছে নিয়েছি। বিদ্যাসাগর মহাশয় ঊনবিংশ শতকের একজন বিশিষ্ট বাঙালি শিক্ষাবিদ, সমাজ সংস্কারক এবং গদ্যকার ছিলেন। তার প্রকৃত নাম ঈশ্বরচন্দ্র বিদ্যাসাগর। সংস্কৃত ভাষা ও সাহিত্যে অগাধ পাণ্ডিত্যের জন্য তিনি বিদ্যাসাগর উপাধিটি লাভ করেছিলেন। সংস্কৃত ছাড়াও বাংলা, ইংরাজি ভাষায় বিশেষ ব্যুৎপত্তি ছিল তার। বাংলা গদ্যের প্রথম সার্থক রূপকার তিনি। তাকে বাংলা গদ্যের প্রথম শিল্পী বলেও অভিহিত করা হয়। তিনি রচনা করেছেন জনপ্রিয় শিশু পাঠ্য বর্ণপরিচয় সহ একাধিক পাঠ্যপুস্তক, সংস্কৃত ব্যাকরণ গ্রন্থ, সংস্কৃত, হিন্দি ও ইংরাজি থেকে অনুবাদ, সাহিত্য, জ্ঞানবিজ্ঞান সংক্রান্ত বহু রচনা। তিনি নারীদের জন্য বিধবা বিবাহ, স্ত্রী শিক্ষা প্রচলন, বহু বিবাহ, বাল্যবিবাহের মতো সামাজিক অভিশাপ দূরীকরণে তার অবদান অনস্বীকার্য হয়ে আছে আমাদের কাছে। তিনি বাংলায় নবজাগরণের এই পুরোধা ব্যক্তি, দেশের কাছে দয়ার সাগর নামেও পরিচিত। তিনি দারিদ্র পীড়িতদের কখনোই শূন্য হাতে ফিরিয়ে দিতেন না। তিনি নারীদের শিক্ষার জন্য বিভিন্ন উদ্যোগ গ্রহণ করেছেন। তিনি 1849 খ্রিস্টাব্দে হিন্দু বালিকা বিদ্যালয় প্রতিষ্ঠা করে, যা বর্তমানে বেথুন স্কুল নামে পরিচিত। নারীদের মধ্যে শিক্ষা সচেতনতা বৃদ্ধির জন্য তিনি বিভিন্ন জেলায় বর্ধমান, হুগলি, মেদিনীপুর প্রভৃতি জেলার মধ্যে স্ত্রী শিক্ষা সম্মিলনী গড়ে তোলেন এবং এবং পরবর্তীকালে 1857 খ্রিস্টাব্দ থেকে 1858 খ্রিস্টাব্দের সময়কালে অর্থাৎ 7 মাসের মধ্যে তিনি বর্ধমান, হুগলি, মেদিনীপুর, নদিয়া বিভিন্ন জেলায় 35টি বিদ্যালয় গড়ে তোলেন, যাতে 1300টি ছাত্রী পড়াশোনা করত। বিদ্যাসাগর নিজ উদ্যোগে ও খরচে কলকাতায় মেট্রোপলিটন ইনস্টিটিউশন গড়ে তোলে, যা বর্তমানে বিদ্যাসাগর কলেজ নামে পরিচিত। রাজধানী কলকাতায় আধুনিক স্থাপত্যের অন্যতম শ্রেষ্ঠ নিদর্শন বিদ্যাসাগর সেতু তারই নামে উৎসর্গিত এবং তিনি নিজের মায়ের স্মৃতির উদ্দেশ্যে নিজ গ্রামে বীরসিংহে ভগবতী বিদ্যালয় প্রতিষ্ঠা করেন। এছাড়া তিনি নারীদের অধিকারের জন্য রাজা রামমোহন রায়ের সঙ্গে সতীদাহ প্রথার বিরুদ্ধে রুখে দাঁড়িয়েছিলেন। তিনি পরিশেষে বলা যায় যে তৎকালীন সময়ে বিদ্যাসাগরের যে অবদান রয়ে গেছিল সেটির প্রভাবে আমরা আজকের নারীরা সচ্ছলভাবে জীবনযাপন করতে পারছি। মানবতাবাদী বিদ্যাসাগর তিনি তার আদর্শ ও চিন্তাভাবনাকে প্রকাশ করেছেন শিক্ষা দর্শনের মধ্যে দিয়ে। শিক্ষার ব্যাপারে তার দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি ছিল অত্যন্ত বাস্তববাদী, তাই বাংলার নবজাগরণের এক উজ্জ্বল পথিকৃৎ তিনিই হচ্ছেন। অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে এই আন্তর্জাতিক ওয়েবিনারে অংশগ্রহণ করার সুযোগ করে দেওয়ার জন্য।
নমস্কার, আমি সুজাতা ঘোষ, শিলিগুড়ি শিক্ষণ মহাবিদ্যালয়ের প্রশিক্ষণার্থী। আমার সেমিনার পেপারের বিষয় হলো সাহিত্যের ক্ষেত্রে গার্হস্থ্য হিংসার বিবর্তিত রূপ। প্রথমেই বলি হিংসা। জীব মাত্রে কিন্তু লুকিয়ে রয়েছে হিংসাবৃত্তি। এই প্রবৃত্তি কখনো অবদমিত অবস্থায় থাকে, আবার কখনো এর বহিঃপ্রকাশ ঘটে। আর গার্হস্থ্য হিংসা হলো একই পরিবারের অন্য আরেকজন সদস্যের প্রতি অন্যায় ও অত্যাচার করা, যা কিন্তু শারীরিক, মানসিক, যৌন, আবেগজনিত নিগ্রহ হতে পারে। বর্তমানে এই গার্হস্থ্য হিংসা কতটা ভয়ঙ্কর রূপ ধারণ করেছে তা কিন্তু আপনার এবং আমার সকলেরই কিন্তু জানা। জাতীয় অপরাধ নিবন্ধীকরণ বিভাগ এনসিআরবি কর্তৃক প্রকাশিত তথ্য অনুযায়ী প্রতি 5 মিনিটে একটি করে গার্হস্থ্য হিংসার ঘটনা কিন্তু নথিভুক্ত হচ্ছে, যা কিন্তু যুগে যুগে বিভিন্নভাবে বিবর্তিত হয়েছে। আমরা জানি সাহিত্য সমাজের কথাই বলে, যা কিছু এই জগৎ সংসারে ঘটে তাই সাহিত্যের বিভিন্ন শাখা অর্থাৎ গল্প, উপন্যাস, প্রবন্ধে কিন্তু ফুটে ওঠে। তাই আমি সাহিত্যের নিরিখে গার্হস্থ্য হিংসার বিবর্তিত রূপগুলি তুলে ধরবার চেষ্টা করছি। চর্যাপদ বাংলা সাহিত্যের একটি অতি সুপ্রাচীন কাব্য নিদর্শন। এই চর্যাপদে 2, 4 এবং 11 নঙ্গে যে পারিবারিক চিত্র রয়েছে সেখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে কাণ্ড ডম্বির প্রতি আকৃষ্ট হয়ে তার পরিবারের শাশুড়ি, ননদ, শালীকে কিন্তু হত্যা করছে। সেই সময় ব্যক্তিগত কিন্তু কোনো স্বেচ্ছাচারের অবকাশ ছিল না। তাই আমরা এখানে কিন্তু একটা শারীরিক নির্যাতনের চিত্রই কিন্তু দেখতে পাচ্ছি। এরপরে বলবো মঙ্গল কাব্য। চর্যাপদ যেমন প্রাচীন যুগের প্রথম এবং একমাত্র কাব্য নিদর্শন, ঠিক তেমনি মধ্যযুগে প্রথম কাব্য নিদর্শন হলো বড়ুচণ্ডীদাসের শ্রীকৃষ্ণ কীর্তন। আমরা কিন্তু জানি যে রাধার বিয়ে হয়েছিল নপুংসক আইহনের সঙ্গে, কিন্তু সে কখনো তার স্বামীর দোষ ত্রুটির কথা জনসমক্ষে বলেনি। তার প্রমাণ রয়েছে তাম্বুলখণ্ডে আমরা দেখেছি যে কৃষ্ণর প্রেম প্রস্তাব প্রত্যাখ্যান করে কিন্তু সে বড়াইকে সক্রোধে বলে উঠেছিল, ঘরে আমার সর্বাঙ্গে সুন্দর সুলক্ষণযুক্ত স্বামী আছে। এই কাব্যে শারীরিক নির্যাতনের কোনো চিত্র না ফুটে উঠলেও মানসিক নির্যাতনের কিন্তু চিত্র ফুটে উঠেছে। তা কিন্তু আমরা দেখতে পাই যে বৃন্দাবন খণ্ডে দেখতে পাই যে রাধার শাশুড়ি তাকে কিন্তু দধি দুগ্ধ বিক্রি করতে তাকে মথুরায় যেতে দিতে চাইছে না, কিন্তু রাধা কিন্তু যেতে চায়, তাকে কিন্তু আটকানো হয়েছে। এরপর মনসামঙ্গল কাব্যের কথা বলি। এই মনসামঙ্গল কাব্যে কিন্তু গার্হস্থ্য হিংসার ভয়ঙ্কর রূপ ফুটে উঠেছে। আমরা জানি যে আমরা কিন্তু জানি মনসার জন্মবৃত্তান্ত। শিবের চিত্ত চাঞ্চল্যই তার মূল কারণ। শিব ফুলে সাজিত করে মনসাকে নিয়ে আসে এবং তা কিন্তু চণ্ডী দেখতে পায়, এবং যেহেতু শিবের চরিত্র সম্পর্কে চণ্ডী খুব ভালো মতোই জানে, তাই সতীন মনে করেই তার সঙ্গে কিন্তু দ্বন্দ্ব শুরু করে, যার ফলস্বরূপ আমরা কিন্তু দেখতে পাই যে জ্বলন্ত অঙ্গারে মনসার বাম চক্ষু কানা হয়ে যায়। অর্থাৎ সমাজ যত আধুনিকতার দিকে এগিয়েছে, ততই কিন্তু মানুষের মনের জটিলতাগুলি বৃদ্ধি পেয়েছে, যার প্রমাণ রয়েছে মানিক বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায়ের কুষ্ঠরোগীর বউ, সরীসৃপ, নরেন্দ্রনাথ মিত্রের রস, বিমল করের আত্মজা ও বিভিন্ন লেখকের গল্পে। মানিক বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায়ের কুষ্ঠরোগীর বউ গল্পে আমরা কিন্তু দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে যতীনের শরীরে যে পচন, অর্থাৎ তার যে রোগ যত বেড়েছে, ততই কিন্তু মহাশ্বেতার ওপর তার মানসিক অত্যাচার বৃদ্ধি পেয়েছে। আমরা সেখানে দেখতে পাই যে তার রোগ কিন্তু মহাশ্বেতার ওপর ছড়িয়ে দিতে চাইছে, অর্থাৎ তাকেও মৃত্যুর মুখে ঠেলে দিতে চাইছে। এখানে কিন্তু একটা হিংসার রূপই প্রতিফলিত হচ্ছে। আবার আত্মজা গল্পে কিন্তু আমরা একদম অন্যরকম দৃশ্য দেখতে পাই হিংসার। সেখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে যুথিকা এবং হিমাংশুর একমাত্র কন্যা পুতুলকে নিয়ে তার মা যুথিকা কিন্তু তার স্বামী হিমাংশুকে সন্দেহের চোখে দেখছে, বারে বারে তাকে এমনভাবে কিছু বলছে যে মুখ ফুটে না বললেও প্রথমের দিকে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে তাকে বিভিন্নভাবে বোঝাবার চেষ্টা করছে, তাতে আস্তে আস্তে হিমাংশু বুঝলেও সেইভাবে গুরুত্ব দেয়নি। কিন্তু শেষের দিকে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে যুথিকা কিন্তু একদম সামনাসামনি তাকে বলছে আক্রমণ করে, আর সেটা শোনার পরে কিন্তু হিমাংশু কিন্তু আত্মহত্যার পথ বেছে নেয়। অর্থাৎ এখানে কিন্তু একদম অন্যরকম একটা চিত্র দেখতে পাওয়া যাচ্ছে। অর্থাৎ বারে বারে সেই প্রাচীন যুগ, মধ্যযুগ, আধুনিক যুগে কিন্তু হিংসার রূপগুলো কিন্তু আস্তে আস্তে বিবর্তিত হচ্ছে, বরং বলতে পারি আরো বেশি ভয়ঙ্কর হয়ে উঠছে। বেশি কিছু বলবো না, সময় খুব কম, কোথাও ভুল ত্রুটি হলে মাফ করবেন। নমস্কার।